Hey friends, tonight we are diving headfirst into a historical septic tank you never knew existed. We're peeling back the sun-scorched, goat-chewed layers of ancient Troy to uncover a story so ridiculous, so deeply unhinged, that mainstream history decided just quietly to ghost it and hope nobody noticed. We're talking about a secret society of paranormal investigators, a guild of witch hunters so incompetent they couldn't find a curse if it were stapled to their forehead. This is the story of their catastrophic rise, their spectacular faceplant, and their deeply humiliating banishment. You probably won't survive this with your sanity intact, and frankly, there's a non-zero chance you'll end up spiritually tethered to a very judgmental goat. Please don't say I didn't warn you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you're at it, post your location and the time in the comments. I want to see who's procrastinating on what, where. Bonus points if you're watching this while pretending to work. We've all been there. Now grab snacks, mute your mom, and let's get weird together. The sun over Troy is a bully. It's not just hot, it's personal. You feel its weight on your shoulders as you trudge through the lower city, the dusty wool of your new work-mandated tunic already collecting a fine layer of grime and regret. The air is thick with the smell of roasting barley, hot clay, and 1,000 sweating bodies packed into one glorious, chaotic fire hazard. This is it, your first day. You got the job. Congratulations, you've peaked. The recruiter, a man whose smile didn't quite reach his cold, dead eyes, called it an exciting opportunity in proactive spiritual sanitation. You, being desperate and tired of your previous career haggling over the price of slightly bruised olives, chose to believe him. A mistake. You're already sure it was a catastrophic, life-altering mistake. You sidestep a puddle of something you pray is just spilled wine and continue your miserable journey. You're headed for a street that doesn't appear on any respectable map. A place your new boss, in a whispered conversation behind a falafel stand, called the Nerve Center. Your sandals, a cheap pair you bought yesterday, make a sticky, peeling sound on the cobblestones, which seem to be permanently glazed with a thin film of goat pee and crushed figs. It's the official perfume of the working class. You pass beneath the shadow of Troy's legendary walls, the ones Homer would one day write about. Up close, their less epic backdrop for heroes, and more impossibly huge stack of rocks held together by divine stubbornness. A mainstream historical fact for you. These walls were famously thick, in some places over 16 feet, and angled in a way that made them a nightmare for anyone with a ladder and a bad attitude. Right now, they mostly block the breeze, turning the narrow streets into a convection oven of human misery. You clutch the small clay token in your sweaty palm, your proof of employment. It's stamped with a crude drawing of an eye with a lightning bolt through it, which feels a little on the nose, even for a secret society. A group of children stops their game of rolling sheep knuckles to stare at you. One of them points and whispers something that makes the others giggle. You're not just the new guy, you're a walking spectacle of poor life choices. You hurry on, trying to project an aura of, I totally know what I'm doing. But you suspect you're radiating, I would trade my soul for a glass of cool water and a different identity. Your instructions lead you to a goat pen wedged between a dye maker's workshop, which smells like boiling sulfur and regret, and a bakery venting waves of glorious, unattainable bread-scented air. And there, in the pen, is a goat. It's not just any goat. It stops chewing its cud. It turns its head slowly, its rectangular pupils locking onto yours. It knows. You don't know what it knows, but the sheer, ancient intelligence in its gaze makes the hair on your arms stand up. It looks at you, then at the sketchy alleyway you're supposed to enter, then back at you and gives a single, definitive, disappointed bleat. It's the nonverbal equivalent of your mom saying, I'm not mad, just disappointed, which is so much worse. You tear your eyes away from the prophetic goat of doom and face your destiny. A warped wooden door, stained with who knows what, tucked away in an alley that's less an alley and more a garbage-choked crevice. There's no handle, just a small, fist-sized hole. As per your instructions, you tap the door 3 times, pause, then tap twice more. It's the secret knock of a child's clubhouse, not a clandestine organization. After a long, awkward moment where you consider just running away and joining a pirate crew. A small wooden slat slides open at eye level. Two suspicious eyes peer out. A voice, rough as gravel, demands, "Password." Password? The recruiter didn't mention a password. You panic. Your mind goes completely blank. All you can think about is the goat. The disapproving goat. The goat is judging me? You stammer out, your voice cracking. The eyes narrow. You're dead. You're going to be murdered in a back alley for not knowing the secret handshake. But then the voice grunts. Close enough. A series of loud, metallic clunks echoes from behind the door, like several large bolts being reluctantly drawn back by someone who's out of practice. The door groans open a crack, revealing a sliver of profound, lamplit darkness that smells of damp earth, old paranoia, and something vaguely like burnt hair. As you stand on the precipice of this terrible decision, a thought floats through your head. Historians still argue whether the legendary Trojan War was a real conflict over a kidnapped queen or a complex economic dispute over Black Sea trade routes. It's a classic scholarly debate, a favorite at stuffy academic conferences. But you, standing here, about to enter a stinky basement to join a guild of ghost botherers, have a new theory. You're pretty sure the Trojan War was started by some poor schmuck who got this same job offer, took one look at this door, and decided that burning the entire world to the ground was a more reasonable career path. A quirky tidbit for you: many ancient peoples, including those in the Aegean, didn't just write letters, they wrote curses. They'd inscribe nasty wishes onto lead tablets called depictions and bury them or nail them to temple walls, hoping to jinx their enemies, their exes, or their business rivals. You have a sinking feeling your job is about to involve a lot of these ancient hate tweets. The door creaks open wider, the darkness beckons. You take a deep breath that does you absolutely no favors, step over the threshold, and leave the world of sanity, sunlight, and optimistic goats behind. The heavy door slams shut behind you with a deafening thud that vibrates in your teeth. You're plunged into a thick, soupy darkness, the kind that feels like it has a texture. It smells like a wet dog died on a pile of old books in a cave. Your eyes slowly and painfully adjust. You're in a basement, not a cool, stone-walled, secret lair type of basement. No, this is the sad, damp, forgotten basement of Troy's collective unconscious, and it's where dreams go to die. The air is so humid you could swim in it, and a constant, maddening drip, 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 echoes from a corner you can't see, a sound that promises future mildew and existential dread. The man who let you in, a walking monument to exhaustion, shuffles past you. He's maybe 40, but he has the tired, defeated posture of a man who's been arguing with ghosts for a living and losing every time. He lights another oil lamp, and the flickering, greasy light reveals your new workplace. It's a disaster. Scrolls are piled in precarious, leaning towers that look like they'd collapse if someone sneezed too hard. Clay tablets, covered in frantic-looking scratches, are stacked on every available surface. Weird, misshapen pottery and creepy-looking wooden figures stare at you from dusty shelves. It looks less like a guild headquarters and more like an evidence locker for a divine police force that gave up 3 centuries ago. This is it. The man grunts, gesturing vaguely at the chaos with a limp hand. Welcome to the Apotropaics. He says the name as if it were a medical diagnosis. I'm Lycomedes. I'm in charge. Try not to break anything. Most of it is cursed. The rest is just junk. It's hard to tell the difference. You notice 2 other people in the room, each inhabiting their own little island of weirdness. In one corner, a young woman with wild, unkempt hair and soot on her nose is hunched over a bronze brazier, poking at the coals with a metal rod. She's intensely focused, a terrifying little smile playing on her lips as a plume of purple smoke curls towards the ceiling. She radiates the energy of someone who was told to play with fire as a child and took it as a lifelong career instruction. This, you intuit, is your pyromaniac colleague. In the other corner, an older man with a long, stringy beard is practically melded to a wooden table covered in maps, astrological charts, and what appears to be the ancient equivalent of a conspiracy board, complete with bits of string connecting different points of interest. He's muttering to himself. The grain shipments are late again. Just as the moon entered the house of the irritated goat. It's the Hittites. I'm telling you, they're beaming negative thoughts from across the Aegean. Lycomede sighs, a sound that contains the collective disappointment of generations. That's Callista. She handles rituals, purifications, and setting things on fire, usually in that order. And that's Theron. He's our researcher. Theron glances up, his eyes wide and unfocused. He points a bony finger at you. Are you one of them? The agents from Miletus? Did they send you to steal my theories on resonant stone frequencies? Lycomedes shakes his head. He thinks everything is a plot. Pay him no mind, unless you want a 3-hour lecture on why pigeons are spies for the underworld. This is your team. A grumpy boss who runs on fumes and cynicism. A fire-happy ritualist who looks like she communicates exclusively through interpretive arson. And a researcher who's one red string away from a complete break with reality. You're the new intern at the Ancient X-Files, and it's already clear that everyone here is a different flavor of nuts. On one of Theron's tables, you spot a stack of clay tablets covered in a strange, spidery script. It's Linear B, the writing system of the Mycenaean Greeks. This is a mainstream historical fact. These tablets were mainly used for mundane administrative records, lists of palace supplies, troop numbers, and the number of jars of olive oil owed to whom. Theron, however, seems to have scribbled notes in the margins claiming they're coded recipes for mind control potions. So, you venture, your voice sounding small and pathetic in the damp air. What exactly do we do? Lycomedes grabs a clay cup from a shelf, blows a thick layer of dust out of it, and fills it with something from a large, questionable-looking amphora. He doesn't offer you any. We are the city's spiritual janitors, he says flatly. The gods are messy. People are worse. They get jealous. They get angry. They whisper curses into little dolls and bury them under their neighbor's doorstep. He gestures to a shelf lined with small, creepy figures made of clay and lead, some of which are pierced with bronze needles. It's a whole collection of colossi, or as you see it, a gallery of ancient passive aggression. That's a quirky tidbit for you. This was a common form of folk magic, an attempt to bind or harm an enemy from a safe distance. It's basically the Bronze Age equivalent of subtweeting someone. He continues, taking a long, grim swig from his cup. Clean it up. Cursed heirlooms, haunted butcher shops, farmers convinced their prize-winning sheep had been possessed by the spirit of a disgruntled tax collector. That's our bread and butter. He shudders. So much goat-related exorcism. So much. Historians continue to debate whether the complex pantheon of gods and spirits represented a genuinely held religious belief system or a sophisticated tool for social control employed by the ruling class. Looking at the sheer, unadulterated chaos in this basement, you have a new theory. It's a cosmic prank. The gods are real, and they're bored. And their favorite reality show is watching you and this motley crew of weirdos try to de-haunt a possessed butter churn. Lycomedes fixes you with a stare. Your predecessor quit. Said something about wanting a less stressful job, so he went to go wrestle bulls in Crete. Your job is to do what I say. Don't touch Callista's fire, and never, ever let Theron talk to you about the lizard people. He points to a dark, dripping corner of the basement. Right? First task. The drains are backed up with spiritual residue again. It smells like despair and congealed fate. There's a bucket. Get to it. He tosses a wooden bucket at your feet. It lands with a wet, squelching sound. You look down at the bucket, then at the dark, stinking corner, then at the faces of your new colleagues. Callista gives you a brief, pitying glance before turning back to her fire. Theron is now trying to listen to a seashell, convinced he can hear secrets from the sea gods. Lycomedes stands there, arms crossed, waiting. The door is locked. The disapproving goat was right. Oh, the goat was so right. This isn't a job. It's a punishment. Your life has a new, unwelcome rhythm, and it's set to the sound of splashing, scrubbing, and the low, guttural moans of possessed livestock. Your glamorous career in proactive spiritual sanitation is mostly just you, on your hands and knees, trying to scrub ectoplasmic slime off of things it really shouldn't be on. The spiritual residue in the drains turned out to be a greasy, shimmering substance that smelled like rotten seaweed and bad decisions. Took you 2 hours to clear, and you're pretty sure you now have a low-grade curse living in your left nostril. Every so often, you catch the faint scent of betrayal and burnt offerings, even when you're just trying to eat your lunch. It's not great. Your days are a blur of petty supernatural crises. One morning, you're called to a potter's workshop where all his new amphorae are inexplicably cracking the moment they come out of the kiln. The potter, a man with clay in his hair and panic in his eyes, is convinced his ex-wife has put a hex on his business. Theron, your resident conspiracy theorist, declares it's a sonic attack from a rival potter using weaponized frequencies. Callista wants to perform a cleansing by fire, which seems to be her solution for everything, including a stubbed toe. Lycomedes, however, sighs, pokes at a pile of discarded clay, and pulls out a small lead tablet. "Here's your problem," he grumbles, holding up the defixio. It's a classic. Someone, probably the ex-wife, had scribbled a nasty little curse. Asterisk, may his pots break, his clay sour, and his kiln forever be lukewarm, asterisk, and mixed the tablet into his clay supply. A mainstream historical fact. These curse tablets were a big business. You could even hire professional curse writers to craft the perfect hex for you, complete with nasty invocations to underworld deities. Your job? You get to dig through several 100 pounds of wet, squishy clay, looking for any more cursed tablets while the potter weeps dramatically in the corner. You find 2 more. Your reward is a single, non-cracked, and profoundly ugly pot that Lycomedes immediately confiscates as guild property. You're not getting paid in money. You're getting paid in cursed pottery. This is your life now. The next day is Goat Day. Oh, you've learned to dread Goat Day. A shepherd from the hills just outside the city walls bursts into your basement HQ. Frantic. He claims his prize billy goat, a majestic beast named Thunderhoof, has started speaking in riddles and is refusing to eat anything but imported figs, which is a costly habit for a goat. Lycomedes groans and grabs his exorcism kit, which appears to be a leather bag containing a collection of smelly herbs, a bronze rattle shaped like a gorgon's head, and a vast, very sturdy stick. You, Callista, and Lycomedes trudge out to the shepherd's pen. The scene is pure chaos. Thunderhoof is standing on top of a small shed, bleating what sounds suspiciously like bad epic poetry. The other goats are huddled in a far corner, looking terrified and deeply embarrassed for him. "It started last night," the shepherd wails. "He told me my tunic made me look fat and then demanded a tribute of wine." Lycomedes approaches the goat cautiously. "All right, Thunderhoof, let's be reasonable." The goat stares down at him with an unnerving level of intelligence and lets out a series of burps that sound vaguely like a prophecy about a coming plague of locusts. Or maybe it's just gas. With goats, it's hard to tell. This is where a quirky little tidbit of history comes in handy. In many ancient cultures, certain animals were believed to be conduits for divine messages. The flight of birds, the entrails of sacrificed animals, even the strange behavior of a goat could be interpreted as an omen. This practice, known as augury, was serious business. You, however, are starting to think this goat has a severe case of central character syndrome. Callista starts chanting and waving a smoking bundle of sage, which only seems to annoy the goat further. It narrows its rectangular pupils at her and spits. A glob of green, half-chewed cud sails through the air and lands squarely on Callista's forehead. She freezes. The chanting stops. The look on her face is one of pure, unadulterated fury. You see her reaching for her fire-starting kit. Lycomedes sees it too. "Callista, no. We are not setting the client's goat on fire," he barks. She looks from the goat to Lycomedes, then back to the goat, clearly weighing her options. While they're distracted, you have an idea, a stupid, terrible idea, but an idea nonetheless. You remember Theron's rambling lecture about how certain herbs disrupt spiritual frequencies. You rummage through your own pathetic little work pouch and pull out a handful of the mint you were saving for your tea. It's probably not what he meant, but you're desperate. You hold it out. "Here, boy," you call, trying to sound soothing. "Nice, possessed goat?" The goat stops its poetic bleating. It sniffs the air. Its ears twitch. It looks at the mint in your hand. It should consider its options. Continue its reign of terror as a minor demonic entity, or eat some tasty mint. It's a tough call. After a moment that stretches for an eternity, it hops down from the shed, trots over to you, and delicately nibbles the mint from your palm. Then it looks at the shepherd, lets out a normal, non-prophetic bleat, and wanders off to bother the other goats. The possession, or whatever it was, is over. The shepherd is overjoyed. Lycomedes looks at you with a mixture of shock and profound disappointment, as if you've just proven that a common garden herb could replace his entire career of complex rituals. Historians still debate whether ancient healing practices, which often combined magical rituals with herbal remedies, were effective due to the placebo effect or because they contained genuinely active medicinal compounds. Watching a demonic goat get pacified by a sprig of mint, you're inclined to think the answer is C. Everything is just foolish and nobody knows anything. You walk back to the city, your sandals caked in mud and goat droppings. You didn't get paid, but the shepherd promised you a discount on cheese next market day. As you re-enter the dank, familiar gloom of the guild's basement, Lycomedes claps a heavy hand on your shoulder. "Not bad, kid," he grunts. "You have a knack for this. An unlucky, deeply unfortunate knack." He pauses, then adds, "Don't get a big head. Tomorrow we have to investigate a haunted olive press. It's been weeping." You look at the dark, dripping corner of the basement, at Theron arguing with a wall sconce, and you feel a chilling certainty settle in your bones. Your life is just going to be an endless series of cursed appliances and emotionally unstable farm animals. Yes, it is. The haunted olive press turned out to be less weeping with spectral sorrow, and more leaking olive oil because a seal was broken. Lycomedes charged the owner a hefty fee for a complex hydraulic exorcism, which mostly involved you hitting it with a mallet. At the same time, Callista burned some costly incense that smelled suspiciously like cinnamon. You're learning that a key part of this job is creative rebranding of basic maintenance tasks. Business is business, even when it's spooky business. You're settling into the grim routine, your soul slowly callousing over like a neglected heel. You've even started to understand Theron's conspiracy theories. After you find your 5th curse tablet hidden in a bag of lentils, you begin to suspect the Hittites are up to something. Your brief, fleeting sense of competence is shattered one afternoon by a knock on the basement door. It's not the secret knock. It's a loud, authoritative, "I own this city, and you are currently inconveniencing me," kind of knock. Lycomedes freezes, a piece of stale bread halfway to his mouth. Callista stops sharpening her ritual knife. Theron, who was explaining how the phases of the moon affect cheesemaking, falls silent. Nobody ever knocks on their door. Clients find them through whispered referrals and desperate, late-night prayers. A knock means officials. Officials mean trouble. Lycomedes gestures frantically at you. You get the door, and for the love of all the gods, try to look reputable. You scramble to the door, tripping over a pile of cursed ankle bracelets. You try to smooth down your tunic, which has a prominent stain from this morning's encounter with a disgruntled ghost in a bakery. You look about as reputable as a 3-legged dog trying to sell you a sundial. You slide open the peephole. Standing in the alley, looking deeply unimpressed by the goat-scented ambience, are 2 royal guards. They are decked out in gleaming bronze armor, crested helmets, and the kind of self-important glares that could curdle milk. One of them holds a rolled-up parchment sealed with the royal crest of King Priam himself. Oh no, this is the opposite of good. You unbolt the door and open it a crack, trying to block their view of the chaotic mess behind you. "Can I help you?" You squeak. The lead guard doesn't even look at you. He looks over your head, into the gloom of the basement. "We seek the so-called Apotropaics," he announces, his voice booming in the narrow alley. "We have a summons from the palace." He shoves the parchment into your hands. Feels heavy like a death warrant. Lycomedes shuffles forward, wiping breadcrumbs from his beard. He snatches the scroll from you and breaks the seal with a practiced, cynical motion. His eyes scan the text. You watch his face go through several shades of pale. He looks up at the guards, then at his disaster squad of employees, then back at the scroll, as if hoping the words will rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. A royal complaint, he mutters, his voice tight. The Princess Cassandra. Even you know that name. Princess Cassandra, daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba. A mainstream historical fact for you. In the myths, Cassandra was a priestess of Apollo, blessed with the gift of prophecy but cursed so that no one would ever believe her. She predicted the Trojan horse, the fall of the city, her own death, and everyone just patted her on the head and told her she was being hysterical. Troy's most famous case of being terminally online and chronically ignored. The guard clears his throat impatiently. The princess has been afflicted. Curse. She has not slept in 3 days. She speaks of visions of fire and ruin. The queen is displeased. You are to come to the palace. Now. A curse on a princess. This is so far above your pay grade it's in a different solar system. Your usual clients are bakers worried about mold and shepherds with goat-related drama. This is the big leagues. The kind of high-profile case that can either make your reputation or get you all executed and thrown into the sea. Given your track record, you're betting on the latter. Theron, however, is buzzing with excitement. Cassandra, of course. Her mind is a natural antenna for cosmic disturbances. I've been saying for years the palace is built on a site of intense telluric energy. But did they listen? No. Lycomedes shoots him a look that could kill a bull. He rolls up the parchment and forces a smile that looks more like a grimace. Of course, the Apotropaic Guild is at the service of the royal family. We will attend to the princess immediately. The guards nod, satisfied. You have 1 hour to prepare. Do not be late. They turn on their heels and march away, their bronze greaves clanking with authority. The moment they're gone, the fake calm shatters. Lycomedes starts pacing, running his hands through his thinning hair. A royal curse. Why? Why us? They have their own temple priests, highly trained, well-funded priests who get to wear clean robes and everything. Callista is already gathering her most dramatic-looking ritual tools. This is our chance, Lycomedes. If we cleanse a princess, think of the prestige, the patronage. I'm thinking of the execution, Callista. He snaps back. If we fail, if we make it worse, they'll have our heads on spikes before the sun sets. They'll probably put a curse on our ghosts for good measure. He turns to you, his eyes wild. You're coming. You have the goat whisperer luck. Maybe you can placate her with some mint. You stare at him, horrified. You in the royal palace? You who still has ectoplasmic goo under your fingernails. A quirky tidbit of palace life. Royal courts in the Bronze Age weren't just centers of power. They were complex, paranoid ecosystems of gossip, backstabbing, and social maneuvering. One wrong word, one poorly chosen tunic, could ruin you. You are a walking faux pas. You are not ready for this. Historians still debate whether Cassandra's prophecies were genuine divine inspiration, a symptom of a neurological condition, or simply the astute, yet unheeded warnings of a politically savvy woman in a patriarchal society. You, however, have a much simpler, more cynical theory forming in your mind. The princess has a curse. Or maybe the princess is a teenager, a royal teenager. She's probably not sleeping because she's up all night writing bad poetry about a cute palace guard. And the visions of fire and ruin are just a dramatic flair to get out of her lyre lessons. You've just been summoned to the palace to deal with a case of terminal adolescent angst. And you have a horrible feeling that this particular teenager is about to ruin all of your lives. Lycomedes claps his hands. A sharp, panicked sound. Right? Everyone, look busy and important. Theron, grab your most confusing-looking charts. Callista, pack the good incense, not the cheap stuff that smells like burning socks. He points at you. Try not to look like you just crawled out of a ditch. We're going to the palace. Let's go get royally screwed. Walking through the gates of the Trojan citadel is like stepping into another world. Down in the lower city, it's all dust, noise, and the smell of hard-working people. Up here, the air is cleaner, the streets are wider, and the silence is deafening. It's the kind of quiet that says, we have people to do our shouting for us. The buildings are made of fine, dressed stone instead of mud brick, and the few people you see glide by in brightly dyed linens, casting disdainful glances at your little troop of weirdos. You, Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron, trailed by the two stone-faced guards, are a walking procession of social awkwardness. You've never felt so out of place. You feel like a muddy goat that's just wandered into a silk merchant's shop. You try your best to follow Lycomedes' frantic, whispered instructions. Stand up straight. Don't stare at the gold leaf. For the love of the gods, do not touch anything. Callista is practically vibrating with a mixture of awe and the desire to set something ritually pure on fire. Theron is muttering about the ley lines, occasionally stopping to press his ear against a wall and listen for geopathic stress. You focus on not tripping over your own feet, a task that suddenly feels impossibly complex. Your sandals, which seemed perfectly adequate this morning, now feel like two dusty flaps of leather strapped to your peasant feet. You are led into the heart of the palace, the Megaron. It's a vast, high-ceilinged hall, the architectural equivalent of a flex. A massive circular hearth dominates the center, its embers glowing softly. For massive pillars, painted with vibrant geometric patterns, hold up a roof that seems miles away. The walls are covered in frescoes, dolphins leaping through azure waves, charging bulls, and elegant ladies with elaborate hairstyles. It's a stunning display of wealth and power, designed to intimidate visitors and impress dignitaries. A mainstream historical fact, these Minoan and Mycenaean-style frescoes were typical in palaces across the Aegean and often depicted scenes from nature, mythology, and courtly life. Currently, they primarily serve to make your basement HQ look even more like a dreary, damp space. Queen Hecuba is waiting for you. She is not a woman to be trifled with. She sits on a carved wooden throne, her posture perfect, her face a mask of regal impatience. She radiates an aura of authority so powerful it feels like a physical force. Beside her stands a man you assume is a high priest, clad in spotless white robes and looking down his nose at you as if you're something he's just scraped off his shoe. Lycomedes executes a low, shaky bow. Your Majesty, the Apotropaic Guild, at your service. He sounds like he's about to throw up. The Queen's voice is like ice. I am told you deal with afflictions of the spirit. She doesn't say filthy peasant magic, but it's heavily implied. My daughter, the Princess Cassandra, is unwell. She raves. She has not slept. The temple physicians have offered prayers and poultices to no avail. They claim it is a curse. I am skeptical, but I am also out of options. She waves a dismissive hand. Find the source of this curse. Banish it. Do whatever it is you do. If you succeed, you will be rewarded. If you fail, or if this is some elaborate charlatan's trick, you will find my displeasure to be memorable. The threat hangs in the air, cold and sharp. The high priest smirks. The palace is spiritually pristine, Your Majesty. I personally supervised the last purification rites. There is no curse here. The girl is merely excitable. The Queen shoots him a look that could freeze the sun. Then you will have no objection to letting these specialists conduct their investigation. See to it they are given access to the princess's wing. The priest's smirk vanishes. He gives you all a look of pure hatred before bowing stiffly and leading you away. He clearly views you as unprofessional rivals, the Uber to his fancy temple-sanctioned taxi service. A quirky tidbit. Professional rivalries between different types of magical practitioners were common in the ancient world. Inscribed curses have been found where one magician hexes another, asking the gods to ruin their rival's business and make their spells fail. You get the feeling this priest is already composing a nasty little curse tablet with your names on it. You are led to the royal wing, which is even more luxurious than the Megaron. The floors are made of polished wood, covered with plush wool rugs. The air smells of cedar and expensive perfume. It's a far cry from goat pee and despair. The priest stops outside a set of ornate doors. The princess's chambers. Do not disturb her. She is resting. He practically spits the word. Conduct your search. Find nothing. And then be gone. He stalks off, his white robes billowing behind him like a cape of sanctimonious rage. Lycomedes lets out a breath he seems to have been holding since you entered the palace. Right? No pressure. He turns to the team. Okay, we do this by the book. Theron, check for telluric interference, spiritual weak points, whatever it is you do. Callista, look for objects with residual negative energy. He points at you. Search for anything that looks out of place. A hidden charm, a strange token, a suspiciously shaped piece of lint. We're looking for the magical equivalent of a smoking gun. You enter the princess's chambers. It's precisely what you'd expect a royal teenager's room to look like. There's a loom in the corner with a half-finished weaving, a lyre propped against a wall, and clothes, very, very nice clothes, draped over every surface. It's messy, but it's an expensive, high-status mess. Callista closes her eyes and begins to drift through the room, her hands hovering over objects, trying to sense their vibe. Theron pulls out a collection of dangling crystals and starts swinging them in corners, muttering about energy flows. It all looks deeply unscientific and profoundly silly. You decide to do some actual practical searching. You check under the bed, dust bunnies, a single lost earring. You check in the chests, more clothes, linen, jewelry. You check in the pottery jars, perfumed oils, cosmetics. There is no sign of anything cursed. No creepy dolls, no lead tablets, no suspicious goat skulls. Nothing. What you do find, tucked away under a pile of scrolls about ancient genealogies, is a small, locked wooden box. It's the only thing in the room that seems personal and hidden. You look over at your colleagues. Callista is trying to determine if a hairbrush has an evil aura, while Theron argues with a tapestry. Nobody's paying attention. You fiddle with the lock. The simple, a small bronze pin from your tunic is all it takes to open it. Inside, there's no cursed object. There are thin sheets of papyrus, covered in writing. It's poetry. Really, really bad poetry. Oh, his eyes, like two dark olives in the sun, slash my heart. A startled quail has come undone. It's angsty, overwrought, and painfully sincere. You find another one. The city sleeps, but I, a lonely flame slash do burn and weep, and whisper his sweet name. And at the bottom of the box you find a crudely drawn sketch of a palace guard. He's depicted with heroic muscles and a jawline that could cut glass. It's signed, "For my dearest Hyperion, from C." There's your curse. The princess isn't cursed. She has a crush. A massive, all-consuming, write terrible poetry about it crush. Historians still argue whether the personas of the gods and goddesses reflected societal values or were independent archetypes with their own agency. As you stare at this box of cringy teenage romance, you're pretty sure the gods are just a cosmic high school faculty, and you're the janitor who has to clean up after their drama club. You close the box and slide it back under the scrolls. You look at Lycomedes, who is now staring hopelessly at a vase. You have a choice. You can tell him the truth, that this whole thing is a royal waste of time, that the princess is just lovesick. But if you do, the queen will have you thrown out for incompetence. The high priest will be vindicated. Your guild will be a laughingstock. Or you can play along. You can help them find a curse. It's a terrible, dishonest, and very, very tempting idea. You stand there, the secret of the princess's terrible poetry burning a hole in your conscience. You look at Lycomedes' sweaty, desperate face. You look at Callista, who is now trying to diagnose a potted plant spiritually. You look at Theron, who is convinced a draft from under the door is a message from the ether. Your colleagues are not equipped for the truth. The truth will get you all banished to an island populated exclusively by angry seagulls. Dishonesty, on the other hand, dishonesty might get you paid. You make a decision. Terrible, excellent, pragmatic decision. You're going to be a team player. I found something. You say, your voice carefully neutral. Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron snap to attention. They cluster around you like pigeons spotting a dropped piece of bread. What? Where? Lycomedes demands, his eyes wide. You lead them over to a large, ornate tapestry hanging on the wall. It depicts a scene from some obscure myth. Gods lounging on clouds, mortals looking terrified. The usual. It's beautifully made, probably worth more than your entire family has earned in 3 generations. This, you say, pointing to a random spot at the bottom. I felt a cold spot. You're just making it up, pulling words out of the air. You're speaking their language now. Callista rushes over, her hands hovering near the fabric. She closes her eyes in intense concentration. Yes, you're right. There's a lingering resonance here, a knot of spiteful energy. It's old, very subtle. She's totally riffing, but she's a professional. She sells it. Theron pushes her aside, pulling out a strange metal rod that looks like a bent kitchen utensil. He waves it over the tapestry. The spiritual vibrations are all wrong. They're dissonant. It's like a badly tuned lyre. It's projecting a field of psychic malaise directly at the princess's bed. He's in his element now, a kid in a conspiracy candy store. Lycomedes stares at the tapestry, his expression shifting from panic to predatory focus. He sees an opportunity, a way out, a scapegoat, a cursed object. He breathes, a slow, greedy smile spreading across his face. Hidden in plain sight. Classic. The perfect vector for a sophisticated hex. He turns to you, a new respect in his eyes. Good work, kid. I knew you had the knack. You feel a hot flush of shame mixed with a cold thrill of success. You've just successfully gaslit your own ghost-hunting boss. Your career is truly taking off. We need to perform a cleansing ritual, Lycomedes declares, his voice now filled with theatrical authority. Here, now. We must sever the curse from the object and banish the malevolent entity. He's putting on a show. He knows the guards are just outside the door. He knows the priest is probably listening. He's playing to the audience. I'll need a bronze bowl, salt, and pure water, Callista says, her eyes gleaming. And fire. A significant amount of fire. No, Lycomedes says firmly. No fire. Not in the royal palace. Are you insane? We'll do the lesser banishing rite. The one with the chanting and the consecrated water. It's less flashy, but it's also less likely to get us executed for arson. Callista looks deeply disappointed, as if he's just canceled her birthday party. While they bicker over the ritual logistics, a guard fetches the requested items. They arrange everything on the floor in front of the tapestry. A bowl of salted water, a collection of strange herbs from Callista's bag, and a special bronze dagger that Lycomedes claims can cut through spiritual bonds. It all looks very official and very, very made up. They begin the ritual. Lycomedes starts a low, monotonous chant in a language you don't recognize. It might be an ancient magical tongue, or it might be him reciting a grocery list backwards. It's impossible to tell. Callista sprinkles herbs into the water, which begins to smoke faintly. You realize she's slipped in some chemical. She's not allowed to have a big fire, so she's making do with some petty, passive-aggressive pyrotechnics. Theron is walking in a slow circle around them, swinging a censer that emits clouds of thick, cloying smoke. You've been tasked with the essential job of standing by the door and looking serious like a bouncer for a supernatural nightclub. The chanting gets louder. The smoke gets thicker. The whole room is starting to smell like burnt rosemary and desperation. Lycomedes raises the bronze dagger. By the names of the watchers and the keepers of the threshold, I sever this bond of malice. I command the venomous echo to depart. Be gone. Be gone. He makes a dramatic slicing motion in the air in front of the tapestry. And that's when it all goes spectacularly, horribly wrong. As Lycomedes yells, "Be gone!" Callista, in a fit of ritualistic fervor, decides the ceremony needs more oomph. She discreetly tosses a small pouch of something into the smoking brazier Theron is swinging. It is, you will later learn, a highly flammable powder made from ground-up sulfur and dried moonblossom petals. A recipe she'd been dying to try. The effect is instantaneous. A geyser of brilliant green flame erupts from the censer with a loud whoosh. Theron, startled, yelps and drops the censer. It clatters across the polished floor, still spewing green fire, and rolls directly under the ancient, priceless, and highly flammable tapestry. The next 2 seconds happen in horrifying slow motion. The flames lick at the dry threads. The threads hesitate for a moment and then ignite. A line of fire zips up the side of the tapestry, faster than a startled snake. The lounging gods on their fluffy clouds are consumed in a wave of orange. The smell of burning wool and exploded mythology fills the room. The four of you freeze, staring in utter horror. You have just set a national treasure on fire. The door bursts open. The two guards, drawn by the noise and the smell, storm in. They stop dead, their jaws dropping. Behind them, you can see the high priest. His face is a glorious, triumphant mask of pure, unadulterated, "I told you so." Lycomedes lets out a small, pathetic whimper. Callista looks at the fire, then at her empty powder pouch, then at the floor, the picture of guilt. Theron looks like he's about to have a full-blown aneurysm. And you? You are mentally calculating how fast you can run and how far you can get before the Royal Guard's horses catch you. A mainstream historical fact for you. Troy was famously wealthy, its riches legendary throughout the ancient world. Palaces like Priam's were repositories of generations of accumulated treasure, art, and diplomatic gifts. Setting fire to a piece of it wasn't just vandalism. It was a direct assault on the king's prestige and power. A quirky fact, some ancient firefighting methods involved fire breaks, which meant tearing down adjacent buildings to stop a fire from spreading. You have a horrible feeling they might apply that principle to you and remove you to prevent the problem. Historians still argue whether the fall of Troy was a result of Greek military genius or internal Trojan political weakness. At this moment, watching the fire brigade of your own incompetence try to put out a priceless tapestry with a small bowl of salted water, you're convinced the city was doomed from the start. Idiots ran it, and you've just been promoted to their chief idiot. The Queen's voice echoes in your head. Asterisk. You will find my displeasure to be memorable. Asterisk O, you're pretty sure it will be. The immediate aftermath is a blur of shouting, buckets of water, and the deeply accusatory sizzling of a dying fire. Palace servants, alerted by the guards, rush in and manage to douse the flames before they can spread to the rest of the room. But the damage is done. The priceless tapestry is now a blackened, soggy, pathetic rag hanging on the wall. It looks like a Dali painting that's had a very, very bad day. The once majestic scene of gods and heroes is now an abstract masterpiece of failure. Your failure. You, Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron are kneeling on the hard, polished floor of the Megaron. Kneeling is a generous term. You've basically been forced into a position of maximum humiliation, surrounded by royal guards who are holding their spears just a little too close for comfort. Queen Hecuba is on her throne, but she's not sitting. She's standing, radiating a cold fury that has lowered the ambient temperature of the room by at least 10 degrees. King Priam is there now, too. He's a large, imposing man with a magnificent beard and an expression that says he has just canceled your subscription to life. The high priest is positively glowing with smug satisfaction. "As I predicted, your majesties," he says, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Charlatans and bunglers. They came into this sacred palace, desecrated a royal chamber, and destroyed a priceless heirloom gifted by the king of Crete himself." He pauses for dramatic effect. Who knows what other damage their crude magics have done to the spiritual fabric of the court. Lycomedes, still smelling faintly of smoke, tries to defend himself. "Your Majesty, it was a ritualistic complication. The curse was more powerful than we anticipated." Fought back. The burst of flame was a manifestation of the entity as it was being banished. It's a bold lie, a desperate, pathetic, beautiful lie. You have to admire his commitment to the bit, even with a spear tip pointed at his throat. The queen is not buying it. "Silence," she commands, and the single word cracks through the hall like a whip. She turns her glacial gaze on Callista. "You, the woman with the fire. Did the curse tell you to bring flammable powders into my home?" Callista, who has been trying to look as small and harmless as possible, shrinks even further. She looks at the floor and mutters something incomprehensible. "This is it. This is how it ends." execution, exile, or maybe being turned into a living art installation about the dangers of freelance exorcism. But then, something unexpected happens. A side door opens, and a palace physician, a flustered-looking man, hurries in. He bows low before the king and queen. "Your Majesties, forgive the interruption, but I have news regarding the Princess Cassandra." Everyone turns to him. The king grunts. "What is it? Is she worse? Have these fools exacerbated her condition?" "No, Your Majesty," the physician says, breathless. "Quite the opposite. She is, well, she awoke from a deep sleep not an hour ago. Her ravings have ceased. Her fever is gone. She asked for a large meal and is currently arguing with her handmaidens about a new dress. She seems perfectly normal." A stunned silence falls over the Megaron. You stare at Lycomedes. He stares back, his expression a perfect cartoon of baffled disbelief. "It worked. Your fake ritual, your catastrophic, fire-starting, tapestry-ruining disaster of a ritual actually worked. Or, at least, it coincided with the princess getting better. The curse, or the teenage angst, or whatever it was, is gone." You can see the gears turning in Lycomedes' head. He sees the opening, the one-in-a-million chance. He straightens up as much as he can while kneeling. "You see, Your Majesty," he proclaims, his voice ringing with newfound confidence. "Our methods may be unorthodox. They may be destructive, but they are effective. We faced a darkness of immense power, and we defeated it. The tapestry was the price. A necessary sacrifice to save your daughter. It's the most audacious spin job you have ever witnessed. It's breathtaking." The king and queen look at each other. They are confused. On the one hand, you just burned a hole in their foreign policy. On the other hand, their daughter is no longer screaming about visions of fire and ruin. The high priest's face has fallen. This was not part of his "I told you so" victory speech. The news spreads through the palace and then the city with the speed of gossip. But the story gets twisted. A mainstream historical fact. Information in the ancient world traveled through word of mouth, and, like a game of telephone, it was often wildly distorted. The official version that solidifies by nightfall is not that you're heroes. Oh no, it's far, far worse. The story becomes, the Apotropaics are so powerful, so reckless, that their magic can cure a princess but also set the palace on fire. They are not saviors. They are a force of chaotic, uncontrollable energy. They are dangerous. Suddenly, you are not just a group of weirdos in a basement. You are Troy's newest scapegoats. The next morning, a merchant comes to your door, shouting that ever since your palace ritual, his goat's milk has been sour. A woman accuses you of making her husband's hair fall out. A baker claims that your bad energy is preventing his bread from rising. It's absurd. People are blaming you for everything. Their bad luck, the unusually hot weather, their own terrible life choices. It's the ultimate case of thanks. I hate it. A quirky tidbit. The concept of a scapegoat has ancient roots, most famously from the Hebrew tradition of casting a goat into the wilderness to carry away the sins of the community. But many cultures had similar rituals for purging collective anxiety and misfortune onto a person, animal, or object. Congratulations. Your guild is now the city's official sin eater. Historians still debate whether large-scale public panics are spontaneous events or if they are subtly encouraged by authorities to divert attention from other problems. As you watch the high priest walk through the market, gravely nodding while people complain to him about you, you get a pretty good idea of what's happening. You're not just scapegoats, you're a convenient political tool. The queen got her daughter back, and the high priest gets to deflect any blame from his own useless temple. Everyone wins except you. You're back in the basement, the door heavily barred. The brief, terrifying brush with royal success has backfired into a city-wide public relations nightmare. Lycomedes is pacing. This is bad. This is very, very bad. We're not heroes. We're not even villains. We're a public nuisance. A supernatural health hazard. Callista is uncharacteristically quiet. She's polishing her ritual knife with a grim intensity. Theron has a new conspiracy board. It's all about you. He's drawn lines connecting a drawing of the burning tapestry to a drawing of a sour-looking goat and a drawing of a bald man. It's a coordinated campaign of reputational sabotage, he whispers. They're trying to silence us before we can reveal the truth about the lizard people. Even Theron's paranoia is starting to sound plausible. You look at the cursed pottery lining the shelves. You were nobodies, dealing with petty curses and haunted livestock. Now, you're the most infamous people in Troy, and you have a feeling it's about to get a whole lot worse. The city doesn't want an explanation. It wants someone to blame, and you're it. The city's mood has curdled, and you're the lumps in its sour milk. Every time you have to leave the basement for supplies, you feel the weight of 100 suspicious glares. People mutter as you pass. A child points and yells, "It's the tapestry burners." Your anonymity, the one perk of your bizarre job, has been violently ripped away. You're now C-list celebrities on Troy's most wanted list. The complaints keep rolling in. A weaver's loom has a splinter. A fisherman's nets are tangled. A tavern ran out of the good wine. It's all your fault. Your guild's chaotic energy is apparently radiating through the city, subtly inconveniencing everyone. The pressure is getting to Lycomedes. He's more haggard than ever, his usual cynicism replaced by a twitchy, cornered animal paranoia. The stream of angry citizens coming to the high priest to complain about you has put the palace in an awkward position. They can't execute you because you cured the princess, but they can't let this public unrest continue. One afternoon, another royal guard arrives. No fancy summons this time, just a grim-faced messenger. The king is displeased with the ongoing disruption to the civic order. The guard announces, refusing to step inside your disaster den. The high priest has formally lodged a complaint. He says your guild has disturbed a delicate spiritual balance. You have unleashed something. He looks you all over with open disgust. You are to find the source of this city-wide malaise. The real source, not some tapestry. Find a witch, a real one, and deal with them, publicly. The king wants a resolution. He wants the people calmed. You have 3 days. He doesn't say the or else, but it's hanging in the air, thick and heavy as the basement's humidity. The door slams shut. Lycomedes leans against it, sliding down to the floor. "A witch hunt," he whispers, his face pale. "They want us to find a witch to take the fall, to pin all this on." Callista's eyes light up with a disturbing fire. A real witch? A practitioner of the dark arts? This is what we were made for. No, you idiot, Lycomedes snaps, his voice cracking. They don't want a real witch. They want a plausible one. They want a scapegoat for their scapegoat. They want us to find some poor soul to throw to the wolves to get the mob off our backs. He buries his face in his hands. We can't do that. We're not that. But you can see the conflict in his eyes. It's a choice between his last remaining shred of morality and the instinct for self-preservation. For 2 days, the argument rages. Lycomedes drinks heavily and stares at the wall. Callista argues for aggressive, proactive witch-finding. Theron is convinced he can identify a witch by measuring their auric signature, which involves waving his hands around and making humming noises. It's a mess. Your guild, which was barely holding it together on a good day, is fracturing under the pressure. On the morning of the 3rd day, Lycomedes makes his decision. You can see it in his eyes. The self-preservation instinct has won. The shred of morality has been drowned in cheap wine. "Fine," he says, his voice flat and dead. "We'll give them a witch. But who? You can't just pick a random person off the street. It has to be someone believable. Someone the people are already suspicious of. Someone different." Theron predictably has a candidate. "The Weaver," he says, tapping one of his nonsensical maps. "The Myconian woman who lives by the west gate. The one they call Lyra. You know who he means. You've seen her at the market. A woman who keeps to herself. A foreigner from one of the Cycladic islands. She's reclusive, speaks with a strange accent, and doesn't participate in the local gossip circles. She's an outsider, perfect target. She is also, incidentally, an incredibly talented weaver. Her tapestries are famous for their intricate designs and strange, beautiful colors. A quirky tidbit: certain dyes in the ancient world, like Tyrian purple, were astronomically expensive, and their production methods were closely guarded secrets. People were often suspicious of artisans who could produce unusually vibrant colors, attributing it to secret, possibly magical, formulas. "What's the evidence?" Lycomedes asks, his voice weary. He doesn't want to do this, but he knows he has to. Theron's eyes gleam with the fervor of a true believer finally being taken seriously. "The evidence is everywhere. She lives alone. She works with strange dyes and herbs. People say she sings to her loom. Her neighbor, a very reliable man named Diomedes, told me he saw strange lights in her window during the last full moon. This is the evidence. She's a single woman with a job. She's an immigrant. She hums while she works. And her neighbor is a nosy gossip. It's the flimsiest, most pathetic collection of accusations imaginable. It's a witch hunt starter pack. And," Theron adds, playing his trump card, "Diomedes' prize-winning chicken, the one that won the ribbon at the last festival. It went bald last week, completely featherless. He says it happened the day after Lyra stared at it too long in his yard." Lycomedes closes his eyes. "A bald chicken. This is what it's come to. Your entire guild's survival hinges on a bald chicken. You feel sick. This is wrong. This is monstrously, horribly wrong. You opened the door to this, you and your cold spot on the tapestry. You chose dishonesty to save your own skin, and now an innocent woman is about to pay the price. It's enough," Lycomedes says, his voice a ghost of itself. "It's plausible. It's what they want to hear." He grabs a sheet of papyrus and begins to write, his hand shaking. He's composing a formal accusation to be delivered to the king's magistrate. A mainstream historical fact. While the famous witch trials of Europe were centuries away, accusations of malevolent magic or goetia were a serious matter in ancient Greece. Such accusations could lead to fines, exile, or even death, primarily if the alleged witchcraft were aimed at the community's well-being. Lycomedes lists the evidence Theron provided: her reclusive nature, the strange lights, the whispers of the neighbors. He lingers on the detail of the bald chicken, embellishing it to make it sound sinister. He adds a detail of his own invention, claiming your guild had detected a powerful nexus of malefic energy emanating from her home, tying her directly to the city's recent string of bad luck. It's a masterpiece of cynical fiction. Historians still argue whether accusations of witchcraft were driven by genuine fear of the supernatural or were a convenient way to persecute marginalized individuals. Foreigners, older people, unconventional women. As you watch Lycomedes sign his name to this death warrant, you know with a sickening certainty what the answer is. It's a tool, a weapon. And your boss, the man who hired you to deal with possessed goats, is now wielding it to save his own miserable life. He rolls up the papyrus and hands it to you. "Take this to the magistrate's office at the Citadel," he orders. His eyes won't meet yours. "Get it done." You hold the scroll in your hand. It feels heavy as a gravestone. You can refuse. You can throw it on the ground, tell them all to go to the underworld, and walk out that door. You'd be broke, exiled, and hunted, but your conscience would be clean. Or you can deliver it. You can be a good soldier. You can save the guild. You can save yourself. The choice is yours. You look at the dark, stinking basement that has become your home, at the pathetic, terrified faces of your colleagues. You think about the disapproving goat from your first day. It knew you were walking into a moral garbage fire. You turn, and without a word, you walk out the door to deliver the accusation. The magistrate's office is a small, stuffy room in the Citadel, smelling of old papyrus and self-importance. When you hand over the scroll, the magistrate, a man with a face like a clenched fist, doesn't even read it. He glances at the seal of your guild, nods grimly, and says, "It is done. The trial will be held at noon tomorrow in the lower agora." Trial. The word sounds like a sick joke. It's not a trial. It's a piece of political theater, and you've just handed them the script. You walk back to the basement feeling like you've swallowed a stone. No one speaks when you return. There's nothing to say. You've all made your terrible bed, and now you have to lie in it. The next day dawns gray and oppressive, the sky the color of dirty dishwater. The mood in the city is electric, a nasty, buzzing energy. The lower agora, usually a bustling marketplace full of vendors shouting about the quality of their fish and olives, has been cleared. A temporary wooden platform has been erected. It's not a stage for a festival. It's a platform for a condemnation. A crowd has already gathered, a morbid, chattering mass of people eager for a spectacle. They want a villain. They want someone to blame for their petty misfortunes, and you've served one up on a platter. You, Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron are given a place of honor near the platform. It's a position that lets everyone see you, the expert witnesses, the saviors of the city. You feel like the biggest fraud in the history of the world. Lycomedes looks like he's aged 10 years overnight. Callista, for once, seems subdued, her usual manic energy replaced by a tense watchfulness. Theron, on the other hand, is puffed up with self-importance. This is his moment. His theories, usually confined to the damp basement, are now center stage. The weaver, Lyra, is brought out by 2 city guards. She's a small woman, maybe in her late 30s, with dark, intelligent eyes that sweep over the crowd with a look of bewildered terror. She's not wearing some sinister black robe. She's in a simple, dye-stained work tunic. She doesn't look like a monstrous witch. She looks like a craftsman who has been dragged from her workshop and thrown into a nightmare. They force her onto the platform. The crowd hisses and mutters. The magistrate takes his place. The high priest is there too, standing beside him, looking serene and pious, the very picture of a man who has successfully outsourced his dirty work. "People of Troy," the magistrate begins, his voice booming, "we are gathered here to address the shadow that has fallen over our great city, a shadow of malice, of sour milk and tangled nets, of blighted luck and bald chickens." A few people in the crowd nod vigorously. The chicken owner, a stout man named Diomedes, pumps his fist in the air. "Our city's own protectors, the vigilant Apotropaics," the magistrate continues, gesturing to you, "have uncovered the source, a nexus of dark magic, emanating from this woman, the foreigner, Lyra of Mykonos." The crowd roars its approval. This isn't a trial by evidence. It's a trial by absolute grade A idiocy. The prosecution begins. The magistrate calls the first witness, Diomedes, the neighbor. He waddles onto the platform, radiating righteous indignation. "She's unnatural, she is," he declares. "Stays up all night, with weird lights in her window, and she sings strange songs in her foreign tongue to her loom. It ain't right." "And what of your chicken?" the magistrate prompts. Diomedes' face darkens. "My prize hen Agamemnia, pride of the neighborhood, this woman." He points a trembling, sausage-like finger at Lyra. "She looked at my Agamemnia with her evil eye. The very next day, poof, bald as a clay pot. It's witchcraft, I tell you." He holds up a struggling, completely featherless chicken. It looks cold, miserable, and profoundly embarrassed. The crowd gasps in horror at the sight of the naked bird. This is the star witness, a man and his poultry, a mainstream historical fact, belief in the evil eye. The power to cause harm with a malevolent glare was widespread throughout the ancient Mediterranean and persists in some cultures to this day. It was often used to explain sudden illness, bad luck, or apparently spontaneous avian baldness. The next witness is a woman who claims Lyra sold her a cloak that gave her a rash. Couldn't possibly have been the cheap wool or the dye. It had to be a curse. Then a man claims he had a dream that Lyra turned into a giant spider and stole his sandals. A dream. They are presenting a man's dream as evidence in a capital case. You want to stand up and scream, "Are you all insane?" But you can't. You're part of the prosecution. The magistrate then calls his expert witness, Theron. He practically struts onto the platform, carrying a collection of his weirdest-looking charts and crystals. "Indeed," he begins, his voice filled with academic gravitas. My guild's investigation revealed a significant disturbance in the telluric current centered directly on the accused dwelling. Her auric field is a discordant mess of malevolent frequencies, consistent with the repeated use of goetia. He's just spouting gibberish, but he says it with such conviction that the crowd eats it up. They nod along, pretending to understand, just happy that a smart-sounding man is confirming their prejudices. Finally, the magistrate presents the physical evidence. A guard brings out a box containing items confiscated from Lyra's home. It's a collection of dried herbs and roots, things she used for her dyes. "Look!" the magistrate cries, holding up a gnarled, vaguely person-shaped root. "A poppet, a tool for sympathetic magic. It's a mandrake root, a quirky tidbit. Mandrake was a real plant, and its forked root often resembles a human figure, which led to a host of superstitions surrounding it, including the belief that it would scream when pulled from the ground and be used in magical potions. It was also a known medicinal plant, used as a painkiller and sedative. To Lyra, it was probably just an ingredient for a specific shade of yellow. To the court, it's proof she's in league with dark forces. They hold up a strangely shaped turnip someone found in her garden. A deformed vegetable, a clear sign of a blighted soul. The turnip looks less like a sign of demonic influence and more like it just had a difficult childhood. Throughout all this, Lyra stands there, shaking her head, trying to speak. "It's for my dyes," she says, her voice small but clear. "The herbs, the roots. I am a weaver, not a witch." "Silence!" the magistrate roars. "The evidence is overwhelming." Historians continue to debate the specifics of legal procedures in Bronze Age societies, as most of our information comes from later periods. But you, sitting here watching a woman's life be destroyed based on a featherless chicken, a weird turnip, and your colleagues' technobabble are getting a pretty clear picture. The legal procedure is find someone unusual, get the neighbors to complain, and then fabricate the rest. It's a system based entirely on vibes, and the vibes are currently very, very bad for Lyra. You look at the faces in the crowd. They're not evil people. They're just scared, superstitious, and looking for easy answers. You look at the high priest, who is watching with a detached, serene smile. He's the truly evil one. He orchestrated this. And you were his willing tools. The bald chicken may be the star of the show, but you're the one who built the stage, wrote the lines, and sold the tickets. The weight of that knowledge is heavier than any curse. The so-called trial grinds to its inevitable, nauseating conclusion. Lyra is given a chance to speak in her own defense, but it's a cruel formality. Every time she tries to explain that the strange lights were her working late by lamplight to finish a commission, or that the incantations were just songs from her homeland, the crowd shouts her down. They don't want explanations. They want a monster, and they've decided she's it. A rising tide of fear and righteous anger drowns out her words. She finally falls silent, her face a mask of exhausted despair. She looks directly at you, just for a second. There's no anger in her eyes, just a deep, profound, soul-crushing disappointment. It's worse than any curse she could cast. It hits you right in the gut. The magistrate raises his hands for silence. The verdict was never in doubt. Lyra of Mykonos, he proclaims, his voice ringing with grim finality. On the evidence of your unnatural practices, the testimony of your honest neighbors, and the expert analysis of the Apotropaic Guild, this court finds you guilty of practicing malevolent witchcraft and endangering the city of Troy. A roar of approval erupts from the crowd. It's a raw, ugly, terrifying sound. This is what they came for. The release. The catharsis of finding someone to blame. As a foreigner who has abused our city's hospitality, the magistrate continues, you are hereby sentenced. You are not to be executed, for the king is merciful. A low murmur of disappointment ripples through the more bloodthirsty members of the audience. Instead, you are to be stripped of your property. Your loom and tools will be publicly burned, and you are to be exiled, banished from Troy and its territories forever, on pain of death. You have until sunset to be gone. Lyra doesn't react. She stands there, swaying slightly, as if the words are physical blows. Her life's work, her home, her entire existence in this city, erased in a single pronouncement. The guards grab her, not gently, and drag her from the platform. The spectacle is over. The mob has been satisfied. Lycomedes lets out a long, shuddering breath. He looks relieved. He looks sick. He looks like a man who just sold his soul for a temporary stay of execution. "It's done," he mutters, more to himself than to anyone else. "We're safe now." But he's wrong. He is so bad. The guards built a bonfire in the center of the agora. They drag out Lyra's loom, a beautiful, complex piece of machinery that was the source of her livelihood and her art. They bring out her baskets of yarn, her carefully organized bundles of herbs and roots, her half-finished tapestries. They throw it all on the pile. Callista watches, her face unreadable. For the first time, she seems to find no joy in the prospect of a fire. This isn't a cleansing. It's a desecration. The high priest steps forward to sanctify the fire, ritually purging the city of the witch's influence. He sprinkles some water, says some words, and a guard brings a torch. The dry, old wood catches immediately. Flames roar up, consuming the loom, turning the vibrant yarns into black smoke. The crowd cheers. They believe they are watching the end of their problems. But then something shifts. The mood begins to sour. Not everyone in the crowd is cheering. You see a woman in the front row, a wealthy-looking merchant's wife, staring at the fire with a horrified expression. You recognize her. She's wearing a beautiful blue cloak, one of Lyra's. You see another man, a prominent council member, his face grim. His house is famously decorated with Lyra's intricate tapestries. A mainstream historical fact. In Bronze Age economies, skilled artisans such as weavers, potters, and metalworkers were vital. They weren't just laborers. They were the creators of wealth, luxury goods, and items of cultural prestige. A good weaver was a valuable asset to a city. And Lyra wasn't just a good weaver. She was a great one. People suddenly remember this. The woman in the blue cloak turns to her husband. "That's the loom that made my wedding shawl," she says, her voice trembling with anger. "That woman was an artist, not a witch," a man near her shouts. "My brother had an order in for a new wall hanging. He paid half already," another voice cries out. "Her work was the finest in the city, better than the temple weavers." The high priest, who oversees the temple's own weaving workshops, flinches at this. Suddenly, the narrative has changed. The mob, so recently united in their fear of a witch, is fracturing. A new, more powerful emotion is taking over: consumer rage. They weren't thinking about who made their nice things. They were just caught up in the panic. But now, watching the source of those nice things literally go up in smoke, they are having second thoughts. They have been duped, and they know exactly who to blame. The anger in the crowd swivels, like a great beast turning its head. It's no longer directed at the exiled Lyra. It's directed at the people who orchestrated this. The high priest, the magistrate, and you. Oh, especially you. This was their idea. A man shouts, pointing at your guild. "The spirit botherers. They're the ones who called her a witch. They burned the palace tapestry. Now they've burned our best loom," another yells. "Everything they touch turns to ash." Diomedes, the chicken owner, tries to rally the cause. "But my chicken, it was bald." A woman turns on him. "Your chicken is always molting, you idiot, and it's ugly. Maybe it's better off bald." The crowd laughs. The bald chicken, once the star evidence, is now a joke. The entire foundation of the trial has crumbled into absurdity. This is a quirky, specific insight into human nature. People will tolerate a lot of things, but they become furious when their access to high-quality consumer goods is compromised. The condemnation of Lyra wasn't about justice. The riot that's starting to brew isn't about justice either. It's about tapestries. Beautiful, high-status tapestries that they can no longer buy. The crowd surges forward. The guards, outnumbered and confused, form a protective line around the magistrate and the high priest. But no one is protecting you. The mob sees you as the architects of this whole fiasco. Lycomedes' face is a mask of pure terror. The safety he thought he'd bought was an illusion. All he did was trade one angry mob for another, bigger, more stylishly attired one. Historians still argue about the primary drivers of urban riots in ancient cities. Was it food shortages, political oppression, or religious disputes? Watching a well-to-do man try to throttle Theron because he's upset about a cancelled tapestry order, you realize they're missing a key category: interior decorating disputes. A half-eaten apple sails past your head. Someone throws a sandal. The crowd is closing in. It's their fault. Charlatans. Tapestry burners. The chants are getting louder. You, Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron are huddled together, a tiny island of terror in a sea of angry Trojans. You didn't calm the city. You just lit the fuse on a much bigger, much more fashionable bomb. The agora has descended into utter chaos. It's no longer a trial or a protest. It's a full-blown riot, but with a bizarrely specific focus. People aren't tearing down statues or storming the citadel. They're yelling about weaving techniques and dye quality. A man who looks like a ship captain is screaming at Theron, not about his soul, but about the unique shimmering thread Lyra used in her seascapes. It's the most well-appointed, aesthetically driven riot in history. But the anger is real. The fists are real. And they are all aimed at you. You're backed up against the cold stone of a fishmonger's stall. The smell of day-old mackerel mingling with the scent of your own fear. The crowd is a pressing, shouting wall of furious artisans, angry homemakers, and disgruntled interior design enthusiasts. Lycomedes is trying to reason with them. Please, we were only doing our duty. We were protecting the city. You protected us from beautiful, reasonably priced textiles. A woman screams back, shaking a fistful of coins at him. My sister in Miletus is going to be insufferable now. Her weaver is only mediocre. You are about to be torn limb from limb by a mob of angry tastemakers. This is, you think with a detached sense of hysteria, a foolish way to die. But then, a sound cuts through the din. A series of sharp, authoritative trumpet blasts. The crowd falters. The shouting subsides to a nervous murmur. Pushing their way through the mob, their bronze armor gleaming, is a complete detachment of the king's personal guard. The best equipped, meanest-looking soldiers in Troy. They aren't the two ceremonial goons from the palace. These are the professionals. And at their head, looking even more imposing than he did in his own throne room, is King Priam himself. He's not in a chariot. He's on foot, walking right into the heart of the chaos, and the sheer force of his presence parts the crowd like a ship's prow through water. The high priest and the magistrate, who had been cowering behind a line of guards, scurry to his side, trying to look like they were in control the whole time. King Priam ignores them. He surveys the scene. The smoking pyre of the loom, the furious faces of his citizens, the terrified, pathetic huddle of your guild. His expression is not just angry, it's something far worse. It's the look of a man whose patience has been utterly, completely, and irrevocably exhausted. He stops directly in front of you. The king of Troy is 10 feet away, and he looks like he wants to strangle you personally. I wanted the people calmed, he says, his voice dangerously quiet, yet it carries across the now silent agora. I wanted a resolution. Instead, I have a riot in my lower city. My best artisan is banished, and my nobles are threatening to stop paying their taxes until the tapestry crisis is resolved. He lets that sink in. He looks at the high priest. You told me this would work. He looks at the magistrate. You told me this was justice. Then his gaze settles on Lycomedes, and it's like being pinned by a lance. And you, I gave you a chance to fix the mess you made. Instead, you poured oil on the fire, then lit a second, more expensive fire, and then somehow managed to convince my entire populace to riot about it. He gestures to the smoldering remains of the loom. That weaver paid more in taxes than your entire guild has earned in its miserable existence. Ouch. That's a low blow. A mainstream historical fact. Taxation in Bronze Age kingdoms was the lifeblood of the state, funding the army, the palace bureaucracy, and public works. An artisan who created high-value goods for export was a significant economic asset. You didn't just get an innocent woman exiled, you damaged the king's bottom line. Lycomedes opens his mouth, probably to launch into another spectacular, desperate lie. Priam holds up a hand. Do not speak. I am done listening to you. I am done with your rituals, your curses, and your catastrophic incompetence. He turns to the crowd. Go home, he booms. There will be order. The Weaver Lyra's sentence is under review. A new master weaver will be sought from Assyria. Your walls will not remain bare. It's a purely political move, a promise to address the supply chain issues. He's treating this like a trade dispute, not a supernatural crisis, which is probably the smartest thing anyone has done all day. The crowd, grumbling but mostly satisfied that the king is taking their soft furnishing needs seriously, begins to disperse. Once the agora is mostly clear, Priam turns his full, terrifying attention back to you. As for you four, he says, his voice dropping back to that icy quiet, you are an infection, a disease of chaos and stupidity, and I am the physician. The Apotropaic Guild, or whatever you call yourselves, is hereby and forever dissolved. Your existence is no longer officially recognized. Your charter, if you ever had one, is revoked. This is it. He's firing you from life. You are banished, he continues, each word a hammer blow, not just from the city but from all lands under the protection of Troy. If you are found within my borders after sunrise tomorrow, you will be executed on the spot. No trial, no appeal. He leans in closer to Lycomedes. And I will personally ensure your ghost is banished, too. I will have my priests curse your very name from the memory of this city. A quirky tidbit. The practice of damnatio memoriae, or the condemnation of memory, was a real phenomenon in the ancient world, used against hated rulers or notorious criminals. It involved erasing their name from inscriptions and monuments, a kind of retroactive cancellation. The king is threatening to delete you from history. Historians continue to debate the extent of a king's absolute power in Mycenaean-era societies. Was he a divine autocrat or a first among equals, constrained by a council of nobles? Watching Priam single-handedly dissolve your guild, rewrite a legal verdict, and sentence you to death with no oversight whatsoever, you're leaning heavily toward divine autocrat. This guy does not mess around. He turns to leave. You have until sunset to vacate your headquarters. He spits the word like it's poison. Then, 10 minutes at sunrise at the west gate to gather what you can carry. My guards will escort you out. Be grateful I am granting you that. He doesn't look back. He strides away, his guards falling into formation around him, leaving you in the empty, stinking agora. You are alone. The high priest gives you one last, triumphant smirk before gliding away. It's over. You don't have a guild. You don't have a home. You don't have a future. You have a few hours of darkness and then exile. Utter, complete ruin. All because of a lovesick princess, a burning tapestry, a bald chicken, and a series of progressively worse decisions. You look at your colleagues. Lycomedes is just staring into space, broken. Callista is hugging herself, shivering. Theron is looking at his useless charts, as if they might offer one last, secret answer. There is no answer. There's just the end. The walk back to the basement is a walk of the dead. The few people still lingering in the streets see you and turn away, some with pity, most with contempt. You are no longer a menace, you're just pathetic. Obsolete. Yesterday's news. The door to your headquarters groans open one last time. The familiar smell of damp, failure, and Theron's unwashed socks hits you, but it's no longer comforting in its familiarity. It's the smell of a tomb. Your tomb. The king's words echo in the small, cramped space. You have until sunset to vacate. Sunset is maybe an hour away. The reality of the situation crashes down on you all at once. This isn't just getting fired. This is being erased. Lycomedes sinks onto a stool, the fight completely gone out of him. He stares at his collection of confiscated, cursed pottery, the sad trophies of his failed career. So, that's it then, Callista says, her voice hollow. Her fiery spirit seems to have been finally extinguished. All this, for nothing. Theron, ever the optimist, pulls out a map of the Aegean. Exile isn't so bad. It's an opportunity. We could travel to Egypt. I have a theory that the pyramids are not tombs, but giant energy accumulators. We could start a new guild there. A better one. With what, Theron? Lycomedes's voice is rough with despair. With what money? What reputation? Our names are mud from here to Crete. We're not the Apotropaics anymore. We're just four broke weirdos who got kicked out of Troy for being catastrophically bad at our jobs. He's right. The panic starts to set in. You have 1 hour to pack up your entire life. You look around the basement. What is there even to take? Your worldly possessions consist of one change of tunic, currently being used as a rag, a half-eaten loaf of stale bread, and the ugly pot you got as payment for the clay cursing case. Your life savings amount to a few bronze coins that wouldn't even buy you a decent pair of sandals. The mood curdles from despair to frantic, selfish panic. The thin veneer of collegiality evaporates. It's every man, woman, and conspiracy theorist for themselves. Lycomedes starts grabbing the most valuable-looking of the cursed artifacts. "This is guild property," he declares, stuffing a silver amulet that supposedly causes boils into a sack. "And as the former head of the guild, I am its legal executor." Executor of what? A pile of bad juju? Callista retorts. She's not going for the cursed items. She's smarter. She's in the corner, prying a loose stone from the wall. You remember Theron mentioning that Lycomedes kept the guild's emergency fund behind it. It's probably not much, but it's more than nothing. She's staging a one-woman heist. Theron is frantically rolling up his charts and maps. "My research, it's priceless. The world needs to know about the resonant frequencies." He tries to stuff a massive star chart into a small bag, ripping it in the process. He lets out a cry of anguish. You are frozen in the middle of this pathetic, frantic looting of your own lives. What do you even do? You watch as Callista pulls out a small leather pouch from the wall cavity. Lycomedes sees her. "Hey, that's for all of us," he shouts, lunging for her. They start to wrestle over the pouch. A sad, clumsy fight that involves a lot of flailing and grunting. Coins spill across the floor, rolling into the dark, damp corners. They both scramble after them, crawling on their hands and knees, squabbling over every last piece of bronze. It's a scene of pure, undignified chaos. Your boss and your pyromaniac colleague are backstabbing each other for the ancient equivalent of pocket change. Theron is weeping over a torn piece of paper. This is the end of the Apotropaic Guild. Not with a bang, not even with a whimper, but with a pathetic, grubby little squabble in a stinking basement. You look down at your feet. Next to your worn-out sandal lies a small, lead figurine, one of the colossoi from the shelf, knocked over in the scuffle. It's a little man, his arms bound behind his back. A curse of binding. You pick it up. Feels cold and heavy. This is the junk you dealt with. The petty hatreds and fears of a city that has now utterly rejected you. And that's when you realize what you need to do. Forget the money. Forget the stupid pot. You need leverage, insurance, something for the road. While the others are still fighting, you quietly and methodically start to gather specific items. You don't take the flashy, cursed amulets. You take the evidence. You grab the little locked box of Cassandra's terrible poetry that you rehid after the palace incident. You grab the detailed notes Lycomedes made when he was fabricating the witchcraft accusation against Lyra. You take the half-burnt scraps of the lists Theron made of suspicious individuals, which is basically a list of every foreigner and independent thinker in Troy. A mainstream historical fact for you: literacy in the Bronze Age was rare, primarily the domain of scribes and the elite. Written documents like, say, a detailed record of a conspiracy to frame an innocent woman, or a princess's secret, embarrassing love poems were powerful and dangerous things. They were proof. You stuff it all into your own meager sack. It's not a treasure. It's blackmail. It's a collection of everyone's dirty little secrets. Probably won't save you, but it feels better than scrambling for loose change on a floor sticky with goat pee and failure. Just as the last sliver of sun vanishes below the horizon, the door is kicked open. 2 royal guards stand there. Time's up. One of them barks. Get out. Now. You're all shoved out into the alley. Lycomedes has a lumpy sack and a black eye. Callista has a few coins clutched in her fist and dirt under her fingernails. Theron is clutching his tattered maps like a security blanket. You have your sack of secrets. The guards bolt the door to the basement, sealing it shut forever. The Apotropaic Guild is officially homeless. The West Gate. Sunrise. The guard grunts. Don't be late. They march off, leaving you standing in the dark alley. The 4 of you look at each other. The camaraderie is gone. The trust is gone. All that's left is a shared, bitter failure. A quirky, sad tidbit. In some Greek myths, disgraced heroes or kings would have to wander the earth as outcasts. This wasn't just a punishment. It was a state of being, a complete loss of identity and community. That's you now. You're not a Trojan anymore. You're not a guild member. You're nothing. I can't believe you tried to steal the money. Lycomedes snarls at Callista. You were taking all the cursed junk for yourself. She shoots back. My research is ruined. Theron wails. You stay silent, clutching your bag. Historians continue to debate the social structures of Mycenaean society, arguing over the balance between communal obligation and individual ambition. You've just seen it play out in miniature. When the ship goes down, it's every rat for themselves. And your ship hasn't just gone down. It's been dismantled for parts, set on fire, and cursed for good measure. The night is cold. You have nowhere to go. All you can do is wait for the sun to rise on the first day of the rest of your miserable, banished life. The night is long, cold, and profoundly humiliating. You don't have a home to go to, so the 4 of you end up huddling in a garbage-strewn crevice between a granary and a wall, trying to stay out of the wind. It's the kind of place where rats hold business meetings. Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron eventually fall into a tense, twitchy sleep, but you can't. You sit there in the dark, clutching your bag of secrets, the weight of your banishment pressing down on you. The city you once called home is now just a collection of hostile shadows. You listen to the sounds of Troy at night, the distant bark of a dog, the clatter of a late-night patrol, the drunken singing from a faraway tavern. Every sound is a reminder of a world you are no longer a part of. As the first hint of gray light touches the eastern sky, you wake the others. There are no words, just grim, tired nods. You trudge through the silent, sleeping streets towards the West Gate. It's the gate that leads out into the countryside, towards the sea, towards anywhere but here. The Scaean Gate, as it's sometimes called, a mainstream historical fact. This is the gate from which, in the Iliad, the Trojan army would march out to fight the Achaeans. It was a place of dramatic departures. Your departure, however, feels less than surprising. Feels sordid. A small contingent of guards is waiting for you, as promised. With them is a minor palace functionary holding a clay tablet. He doesn't look at you. He reads from the tablet in a flat, bored monotone. By order of His Majesty King Priam, you are hereby permitted 10 minutes to gather what belongings you may have stored at the public depository before your permanent and irrevocable exile. This is the King's mercy. A chance to grab any last pathetic possessions before you're kicked out forever. Lycomedes and Callista have small chests in the depository, containing a few spare clothes and personal trinkets. Theron, you learn, has a larger chest filled with yet more scrolls and research materials. You have nothing. Your entire worldly existence was contained in that now sealed basement. The 10 minutes are a frantic, undignified scramble. Lycomedes is trying to stuff a winter cloak into his already full sack. Callista is making the difficult choice between a sentimental bracelet and a practical whetstone. Theron is trying to consolidate a dozen scrolls into a single, unmanageable bundle. The guards watch, arms crossed, their faces blank with professional boredom. They've seen this before. Banishment is a standard administrative procedure. Precisely 10 minutes later, a guard bangs his spear but on the ground. Time. You're herded towards the massive gates, which are just beginning to open for the day's traffic of farmers and merchants coming into the city. But you're not just being let out. Oh no, it's not that simple. The king wants his resolution, and a quiet, dignified exit is not a resolution. This has to be a performance. As you are pushed towards the gate, you see that a crowd has gathered. Not the angry, rioting mob from yesterday, but a different kind of crowd. A gawking, judgmental, early morning crowd. People on their way to work, stopping to watch the show. Your show. The walk of shame. The guards shove you forward, out from under the shadow of the gate and into the whole, unforgiving light of morning. A collective murmur rises from the onlookers. They point. They whisper. You are the morning's entertainment, the live-action cautionary tale. There they are, the tapestry burners. Look at them. They don't look so tough now, do they? My cousin said they tried to curse the king's soup. Is that true? The humiliation is a physical thing. It's a hot flush that creeps up your neck. You try to stare straight ahead, to focus on the dusty road that stretches out before you, but you can feel their eyes on you. You've never felt so exposed. You are a bug under a magnifying glass. And then the throwing starts. It's not stones. That would be too merciful, too quick. It's garbage. Someone throws a rotten pomegranate. It explodes against Lycomedes' back in a shower of sticky, sour-smelling seeds. A wave of laughter ripples through the crowd. Someone else lobs a handful of olive pits. They sting your face. A half-eaten onion bounces off Theron's head. He yelps in surprise. This is the final indignity. You are being pelted with the city's compost. It's a messy, smelly, deeply personal form of public shaming. A quirky historical tidbit for you. Public shaming rituals, like being put in the stocks or paraded through the streets, were a common form of punishment for centuries. They weren't just about physical discomfort. They were about destroying a person's social standing and reputation. A volley of bruised fruit is currently destroying your reputation. You see Diomedes, the chicken owner, in the crowd. He's not throwing anything. He's just standing there, holding his bald chicken, a smug, satisfied look on his face. He got what he wanted. He's a local hero. You are a punchline. You trudge forward, heads down, trying to shield yourselves from the barrage of organic refuse. Your tunic is now stained with pomegranate juice, onion slime, and something you sincerely hope is just squashed figure. You catch a snippet of conversation between two women as they watch you pass. Look at the way he walks. One says, gesturing at you. Slouching. Definitely the posture of a man with a guilty conscience. They are viciously critiquing your posture. Even your walk of shame is failing to meet public expectations. Historians still argue whether the concept of kleos, glory or renown, often won in battle, was the most critical value for an individual in Homeric society. At this moment, being pelted with garbage while your posture is being judged by gossiping strangers, you are experiencing the exact opposite of kleos. You are experiencing anti-kleos. You are achieving legendary levels of disgrace. Your name will be remembered in Troy, but only as the punchline to a joke about a bald chicken. Finally, you are through the thickest part of the crowd. You are on the open road. The gates of Troy are behind you. The shouting and laughter fade. The guards follow you for another 100 yards to make sure you keep going, and then they turn back, their job done. You are out. You are free. And you are utterly, completely screwed. You stand on the dusty road, the great walls of Troy looming behind you. You are sticky, smelly, and have no money, no food, and no plan. You are in the wilderness. Lycomedes looks back at the city, his face a mixture of hatred and loss. Callista wipes a smear of rotten fruit from her cheek. Theron adjusts his bundle of scrolls. You look down at your sack, the one with the secrets. It's all you have left. The road ahead is empty. The future is a terrifying blank. Welcome to the rest of your life. It smells like desperation and unwashed bodies. The grand walls of Troy shrink behind you, becoming just another feature on a dusty, indifferent landscape. The road you're on is less a road and more a suggestion. A pair of ruts carved into the earth by generations of cartwheels and weary feet. The sun, your old bully, is back with a vengeance, beating down on your heads with no city walls to offer shade. This is the countryside. the wilderness, or, as you're quickly learning to call it, the great outdoor latrine. Your first day of exile is a masterclass in misery. The adrenaline of your public humiliation wears off, replaced by a profound, aching exhaustion. Your feet, accustomed to city cobblestones, are not prepared for this. Every step on the sharp, sun-baked gravel is a tiny punishment. By noon, you have a blister forming on your heel that feels big enough to have its own postal code. The dynamic of your little group of outcasts has shifted again. In the city, you were colleagues, then rivals, then co-conspirators. Out here, you are a chain gang, bound together by mutual failure. There's no bickering, no energy for it, just a grim, plodding silence, punctuated by the occasional sigh or the sound of Theron tripping over a rock. Lycomedes is trying to maintain some semblance of leadership, but it's a pathetic performance. "We should head towards the coast," he grunts, squinting at the horizon. "Maybe we can find passage on a trading ship, somewhere they haven't heard of us." "Passage costs money," Callista points out, her voice flat. She jingles the few coins in her pocket. "We have enough to buy, maybe one goat, a sickly one. We don't need money. We have skills," Theron insists, ever the delusional optimist. "We can offer our services. There must be cursed farms out here. Haunted sheep. We can rebuild." You look at him. He's got a piece of dried onion in his beard from this morning's pelting. He seems less like a paranormal investigator and more like a scarecrow that's been recently mugged. "No one is going to hire you. Your brand is toxic. You're the ghost hunters who get your client's property burned down and then get you exiled." It's not a great selling point. Hunger starts to set in, a gnawing, cramping beast in your belly. Back in Troy, food was always just a market stall away. Out here, food is something you have to find, and the landscape is not precisely a buffet. You pass fields of wheat and barley, but they're owned by farmers who would likely set their dogs on you if you got too close. A mainstream historical fact. The territory surrounding a major Bronze Age city like Troy was a patchwork of cultivated fields, pastures, and small villages, all part of the kingdom's economic infrastructure. You are currently trespassing through the king's pantry, and you're not allowed to eat anything. By late afternoon, desperation drives you to forage. You find some sour, unripe berries that make your teeth feel fuzzy. Theron, using his deep knowledge of herbal lore, proudly identifies a plant he claims is a type of wild onion. It turns out to be a highly effective laxative. The next few hours are spent with Theron making frequent, frantic trips into the bushes, his face a mask of pained regret. Callista, in a rare moment of dark humor, remarks, "Looks like you've finally found a real spiritual cleansing, Theron. Nightfall brings new terrors. The world loses its color and becomes a landscape of menacing, rustling shadows. The wind whispers through the olive groves, sounding like ghosts. Real ghosts, not the kind you used to get paid to argue with. Every snap of a twig is a bandit. Every howl is a wolf. You huddle together for warmth and protection, your earlier squabbles forgotten in the face of a much more immediate problem: not getting eaten. A quirky, and frankly terrifying, tidbit. Wolves were a genuine threat in many parts of the ancient world. They feature in myths and fables, often as symbols of primal, untamed nature. Right now, as you listen to a chorus of howls echo from the hills, they are a symbol of huge teeth that you do not want to become acquainted with. You end up spending the night in a ditch, covered in your cloaks, sleeping in fitful, paranoid bursts. The next few days blur into a miserable montage. You follow the coast, a ragged line of 4 disgraced weirdos trailing along the edge of the Aegean. The sea is a brilliant, mocking blue, full of fish you can't catch and ships that won't stop for you. You try to get work in a small fishing village. The moment Lycomedes opens his mouth, a man recognizes his Trojan accent and spits on the ground. "We know who you are," he snarls. "The king sent a rider ahead. No aid for the outcast. Get out of here, city burners. The news of your disgrace has traveled faster than you have. King Priam is thorough. He hasn't just banished you. He's issued a kingdom-wide restraining order. You are now officially destitute. Your few coins are gone. traded for a half-stale loaf of bread that you devoured in minutes. Lycomedes' sack of cursed artifacts is proving to be completely useless. You can't eat a boil-causing amulet. Callista's flint and steel are your most valuable possessions, allowing you to have a fire at night. It's a small comfort, but it keeps the wolves at bay. One evening, huddled around your pathetic little fire on a windswept beach, you hit rock bottom. Lycomedes is trying to trade his last valuable possession, a silver ring, to a passing shepherd for a piece of cheese. The shepherd laughs at him. "That ring is probably cursed," he says, and walks away. Lycomedes comes back to the fire, defeated. He sits down, holding his head in his hands. "This is it," he says, his voice cracking. "We're going to die out here, starve to death in a ditch." Theron is trying to read the future in the stars, but he can't seem to find a constellation for things will stop being awful soon. Callista is just staring into the flames, her face grim. The wilderness has done what the king, the queen, and the angry mob couldn't do. It has broken them. Historians continue to debate the economic conditions of the rural population during the Late Bronze Age. Were they oppressed serfs or relatively independent smallholders? From your current vantage point, they are all fabulously wealthy people who have things like roofs and food. You, on the other hand, are a new, unstudied class, professionally disgraced supernatural consultants with zero transferable skills for a rural economy. You look at their hopeless faces, silhouetted by the fire, and then you look at your sack, the sack of secrets. You haven't mentioned it. You've just carried it, a silent, heavy weight. Maybe it's time. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end. Perhaps it's just the beginning of a new, much more treacherous game. You can let them give up and waste away. Or you can show them the trump card you've been hiding. The fire crackles, a tiny beacon of defiance against the vast, dark indifference of the night. Lycomedes is still in his depressive slump, tracing patterns in the sand with a stick. Theron has given up on the stars and is now trying to interpret the popping of the embers, a practice he just invented and has tentatively named pyromantic scatology. Callista is sharpening a piece of driftwood into a crude spear, her expression grimly practical. She has officially shifted from disgraced ritualist to post-apocalyptic survivor. You've been silent for the better part of an hour, the weight of your decision settling on you. You could keep your secrets, try to use them on your own, to bargain your way to a new life, leaving these three disasters to their fate. But you know, with a sinking certainty, that you can't survive alone. And as much as you hate to admit it, this pathetic, broken crew is all you have. They are your people now, bonded by the sacred covenant of mutual ruin. Lycomedes was right. You say, your voice quiet but precise. The other three look up, surprised you're speaking. We can't go on like this. We can't get jobs. We can't trade. We're ghosts already. Thank you for that uplifting assessment. Lycomedes grumbles without looking up. I feel much better. But you continue ignoring him. We're not out of options. We just have to stop thinking like exorcists and start thinking like merchants. Callista snorts. Merchants of what? Despair? We've got a surplus of that. You reach into your sack, the one they've all been ignoring, assuming it was just full of your spare tunic and rocks. You pull out the small, locked wooden box. You toss it onto the sand in front of Lycomedes. What's that? He asks, eyeing it suspiciously. That, you say, is a collection of the Princess Cassandra's secret, very embarrassing love poetry, dedicated to a palace guard named Hyperion. Silence. The only sound is the hiss of the fire. Lycomedes, Callista, and Theron stare at the box as if it's a venomous snake. The implications dawn on them slowly, then all at once. Wait, Callista breathes. The princess, her curse, was a massive teenage crush. You finish. The ravings, the not sleeping, it was all just drama. She probably got over it, or he got transferred, or she just needed a good nap. Her getting better had nothing to do with our idiotic, tapestry-destroying ritual. Lycomedes' head snaps up. His eyes, which were dull with despair, now have a dangerous spark. You're telling me we got exiled. Our lives were ruined for nothing? For absolutely, positively nothing, you confirm. We were scapegoats for a case of adolescent angst. The absurdity of it is so profound, so immense, that for a moment nobody speaks. Then Lycomedes starts to laugh. It's not a happy sound. It's a bitter, broken, unhinged cackle that echoes across the dark beach. He laughs until he's gasping for air, tears streaming down his face. Of course, he wheezes. Of course. It was never a curse. It was teenage poetry. We ruined a woman's life over a bald chicken, which was caused by a princess's bad sonnets. It's perfect. It's the most Trojan thing that has ever happened. His laughter is infectious. Theron starts to giggle a high-pitched, hysterical sound. Callista cracks a grim smile. Even you feel a bubble of dark, hysterical mirth rising in your chest. Your entire professional and personal downfall was a farce. A divine comedy written by a bored, malicious god with a terrible sense of humor. When the laughter finally subsides, the mood has changed. The despair is gone, replaced by a cold, hard, calculating anger. That poetry, Lycomedes says, his voice now sharp as flint. The queen would pay anything to make sure that never saw the light of day. Her daughter's reputation, the royal family's dignity. Exactly, you say. Then you reach back into your sack. You pull out the scroll on which Lycomedes fabricated the charges against Lyra. You hand it to him. His face pales as he looks at his own handwriting, detailing the lies about the nexus of malefic energy. And this, you say, pulling out Theron's list of suspicious individuals, is a record of the High Priest using you to create a political hit list. You toss it to Theron, who looks at it with horror, as if seeing his own paranoid ramblings for the first time. This isn't just blackmail material against the royal family, you explain, laying it all out. This is a detailed record of a conspiracy involving the High Priest, the magistrate, and, unfortunately, us. We can't just use it to get back into Troy. Priam would sooner kill us all and burn the evidence. So what's the plan? Callista asks, leaning forward, her eyes bright with a familiar, dangerous light. She's back. We don't go back to Troy, you say. We go to their rivals. We go to the Achaeans. We go to Mycenae. A mainstream historical fact. The Achaean Greeks, led by kings like Agamemnon of Mycenae, were Troy's main political and economic rivals. Tensions were always simmering. They loved a bit of juicy Trojan gossip, especially if it made their enemies look bad. You have their full attention now. We don't sell these secrets for money, you explain. We trade them for new lives. We go to a new king in a new city. We offer him this treasure trove of intelligence. Proof that the Trojan court is in chaos, that their high priest is corrupt, that their legal system is a joke run by a man with a bald chicken, and that their princess is a security risk who falls for palace guards. We give them everything. In exchange, we ask for patronage. A new guild funded by them. A chance to start over, as their loyal in-house experts on all things Trojan and supernatural. It's a monstrously audacious plan. It's treason. It's brilliant. A quirky, final tidbit. Diplomatic gifts in the ancient world weren't always gold and treasures. Sometimes the most valuable gift you could offer a king was information, intelligence about a rival's weaknesses. You are about to make the ultimate diplomatic gift. Historians will continue to argue and debate the actual cause of the Trojan War for centuries to come. Was it trade routes? A kidnapped queen? A dispute between the gods? You now know the awkward, anticlimactic truth. You hold it in your hands, in a box of bad poetry and a scroll of lies. You know that you are about to walk into the court of Agamemnon and hand him the perfect excuse, the perfect justification he needs to rally his allies. You're not just saving your own skin. You're about to become the accidental, deeply embarrassing cause of the most famous war in history. Lycomedes looks at the box of poems, then at the scroll of lies, then at you. A slow, predatory smile spreads across his face. It's the same smile he had in the palace when he thought he'd found a way out. But this time, it's not about desperation. It's about ambition. A new guild, he says, tasting the words. Funded. respected. We'd be heroes. Theron whispers, his eyes wide with the sheer, beautiful insanity of it all. We'd be traitors. Callista corrects him, a savage grin on her face. Even better, you gather up the secrets and put them back in the sack. The fire is dying down, but for the first time in a long time, you are not afraid of the dark. You have a plan. You have a purpose. You are no longer four pathetic outcasts. You are the founders of a new and terrible enterprise. You are about to sell out an entire city for a fresh start, and you feel, for the first time in your life, truly wonderfully alive.